People who can express themselves clearly and make themselves understood whenever you open your mouth. How the hell do you do that? I'm better at expressing how I feel now than when I was younger. For me personally, formal higher education actually helped a lot. Spending multiple hours a day hearing other people discuss and express relatively complex thoughts made it easier to find ways to express my own thoughts. I find that listening to well-researched podcasts made by intelligent people achieve the same thing. I'm Looking at You, This American Life, Freakonomics, and Radiolab among others. I was going to say make sure you use the right words, but actually it's make sure you use the right words for the right audience. Not everyone is at the same level of comprehension, so knowing what works for who is one huge hurdle to get over first. Not only words, but the complexity as well. You can dumb things down, but your conversation partner can't just become more intelligent/educated. Very frustrating arguing with someone who just doesn't understand the words you're using. Or even basic logic/concepts. Using logic and reason to win an argument only works if the other person is interested in logic and reason. Like arguing with an anti-vaxxer doesn't work because more often than not they just won't accept the logical arguments that point to what they believe being wrong. Edit. Fine. Fine. I edited the your to a your. Are you happy now, Internet? Are you happy now? You cannot reason a person out of a position they did not reason themselves into. Someone smart on the Internet. But it is possible to unreason a person out of a position they unreasoned themselves into. A great example, my cousin works for a pediatrician. One woman didn't want to get her son vaccinated because vaccines are a conspiracy. The doctor's solution? Or the talk about vaccines being bad is a conspiracy to compromise our health and well-being. This nutjob of a woman immediately jumps on this new conspiracy train and gets her son vaccinated. Lesson: if they didn't use reason to get themselves into a position, don't use reason to get them out. This seems like a dangerous game in any profession where informed consent is critical. Not that it's always a terrible idea, but you want to be very careful with doing that if you're a doctor or lawyer. That being said, I don't think the doctor's description of the anti-vax movement was at all inaccurate. You might argue that the people espousing those views might not be intentionally leading to worse health conditions, but they ultimately are. Some of the anti-vax crowd certainly are intentionally pushing people away from vaccines and towards their own products. One of the most infamous is the miracle mineral solution that claims to be an autism treatment. MMS, when mixed according to their instructions, is bleach. You're then instructed to make your kid drink the solution or give them enemas with it. Yes, people are giving their autistic kids bleach enemas because they've been led to believe vaccines cause autism and that MMS can somehow cleanse the vaccine out. Some people will stop at nothing to make profit. In cases like that, it can also be helpful to try and get them to come to a different conclusion on their own terms instead of just throwing facts at them. Like leading them through it and giving them a chance to change their mind rather than demanding them to do so. Of course, this only works if they're willing to listen in the first place, but generally people will be more receptive to this than just being lectured at. Yes. Ask them questions. They might explain their way out of their opinion. And listen to their answers, because maybe, just maybe, I'm wrong in my opinion. I think the big problem is the attitude of I need to change your mind, instead of let's find out what we each know and see if that moderates or adds nuance to our opinions. This whole discussion is why don't other people change their minds even though I'm totally right? Maybe because everyone thinks they're totally right. Logic and reason only work if you both have the same priors, otherwise you're just talking past each other unable to understand what the other is seeing. You can be a completely rational and logical anti-vaxxer so long as your starting points from which you reason are such that they result in anti-vaxxing. Never forget this, reason and logic are ambiguous things. They do not say anything by themselves. They can only bring you from one point to another. The point is that if you are using words and concepts that your audience doesn't understand, you need to find different ones. It's not because they're not interested in logic and reason. Everyone thinks their point of view is logical and reasonable. There isn't some category of person who thinks I know logic and reason tell me X but I prefer emotion and superstition so I'm going with Y. When you conclude that the person you're talking to isn't interested in logic and reason, what it actually means is you're not being effective at persuasion. You have to think about where that person is coming from and adapt your argumentation to appeal to their beliefs and values. People aren't computers and there aren't categories of arguments that are objectively logical and reasonable to every properly calibrated person whose operating system has the latest patch. In my experience, the people who go around telling other people they should try logic and reason are often the least logical and reasonable, because they don't even know how their own minds work.